So in this last video, I want to introduce some of the tools and technology we'll be using to help you succeed in this class. Um, so I just want to start with our course website. The most important thing is anything you'll need from this class will be found here, either directly or linked to from my course website. So almost always when people ask, where do I find this? I answer, it's on the course website. Here's where to find it. So making sure you're familiar with the course website is very, very useful. Um, there is a link to it here, but most CSE courses use this short URL, cs.uw.edu/163. Um, Let me exit out of this and open up this course website. Um, okay, so this is what our course website looks like. I already see a typo here. I left in summer 2022 instead of winter 2023. But this is the place for you to learn everything about the class. So it links to everything you want. So the most common thing you'll be checking is our course calendar. This will have links to the lessons. So in fact, this optional lesson is already linked here. The lesson for Wednesday is linked here. We'll come back to that. All of your assignments will be linked here as well as they are released. So this will be the kind of one-stop shop for most of your for your work. There's various subpages here specifically about take-home assessments. One of the most important ones is the syllabus. This is something you should read over and understand what's going on in terms of our class. These videos outline some of the most important details. You can learn more about the staff here. There'll be staff bios on the website. You can learn about our office hours. When we post that, office hours will start next week. There's also lots of helpful resources here from things like if you are unfamiliar with Python, say you know Java, we have a guide that I wrote about how to go from Java to Python. There's also things about like code quality, so how to write code with good style in our class. Lots of important resources will be found here. So I recommend perusing this resources page and finding things that you might find useful. So the course website is going to be like the number one place to go for most of your needs in the course. When you have questions in the course, which is expected, questions are a natural part of the learning process. We're going to be using the Ed discussion board, which is linked from here, but I also have linked up here. This is the place where we'll send all emails, we'll send all of the important details, and you can also post your own questions about the class too. So if you have a question about logistics or course content, or you're stuck on an assignment, this is a great place to go, especially for asynchronous help. We'll talk a little bit about how to join office hours later when office hours start, but this will be a great place to go. So you can see all our emails posted here. You can scroll through them. If you have a question, what I recommend is if it's something immediately relevant to this email that we sent, or it's part of this mega thread, then posting a follow-up comment here is totally the right thing to do. But if you have a new question about some unrelated topic or something that is not directly follow up to that email, or maybe you want to make private, you don't want to use this new thread feature. And that's going to make a new one of these posts down here that anyone on the class can interact with depending on how you set it up. So almost always you want to ask a question. So you're going to set it to the question mode so that we can provide, so someone can provide an answer. And you could type up whatever you want here. So like I have a question about resubmissions. Maybe you can do about course logistics or choose the right thing. I'll just say general. You could type out my question here. Now, when you post, you have the choice of, do you want to make it public so that anyone in the course could see it? So by default, posts are public. If you want to make it so only the course staff can see it, you can check private. So private means only the course staff will be able to see this post. Private posts are great for things like specific to your solution that you don't want to share with the whole class. Importantly, posting your solutions to assignments publicly on the message board is a violation of our academic honesty policy. But if you post it privately just to the core staff, that's okay. So we encourage private questions really for just more of that very specific help, or maybe specific scenarios too. But if you have a general question, please post publicly. That way anyone can interact with it, maybe respond to. Also note, especially for public posts, that you as a student have the ability to respond as well. So if you see a question that you have an idea or a follow-up, or maybe you might want to try to answer, you could do that. And don't worry about if something's slightly off. We can always follow up there and say like, oh, that's almost right. But we do encourage you to be participating and discussing with students as well. Um, Also note, if you want to, you can, if you want a public post, you can also make it anonymous. Anonymous, do note importantly, means anonymous to other students. The course staff will always know who you are. So don't write super mean messages expecting it to not know who we are. Um, and the ed discussion board, anonymous just means anonymous to other students. I should mention, this is really the only case where anonymous doesn't actually mean anonymous. For example, if you have feedback about the course, we have an anonymous feedback tool that is provided by the Allen School. That is truly anonymous. It's only an ed where anonymous means anonymous to other students. But on the anonymous feedback form, we will not know who you are, which does make it a limiting factor in the sense I can't respond to you if I want to ask follow-up questions, but you should feel free to provide anonymous feedback if you choose. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that for many of the questions, whoops, let me delete this. Try this again. Question. Many of the times you have a question about an assignment, there will be this starter text here that we want you to answer. So we'll ask you, like, what are you working on? Describe the task. What do you think, if you're running into a problem, what do you think is the problem? What have you tried so far? Importantly, we're here to help you learn, which is all about trying to give you the tools and the guidance to solve problems that you're running into. So if you just tell us, I'm stuck on this homework, that's not incredibly helpful because we don't know where you are, what you've been trying. So these questions are really important to help us provide the best help possible. So sometimes you might not provide enough detail for us. And so before we answer a question, we might ask, hey, can you answer these questions in more detail so that we can understand what's going on? Obviously, if you're running into a bug, you probably don't know how to solve it right away. But this is not asking, what is the fix? It's asking, what have you tried? What do you think is the error? So we can work from there. Okay. So it's okay if you don't know the exact answer because that's why you're asking for help. That's why you're learning in a class. That's expected. But do try to provide as much information as possible to help us assist you. So that's the ed discussion board, a very powerful tool for us to work together as a class community. The other important thing that ed provides are these pre-class lessons. So before each day of class, so this is for Wednesday's class, there'll be a link to a lesson. So if you open up that lesson, it will take you to a ed lesson, which is all of the course content for that day. So these lessons are composed of a set of readings where they introduce some concept. So this is like Python basics. It's showing how to write some stuff in Python. And again, it's okay if you still have questions about the content after reading this. Again, this is just a first introduction. This is nowhere near mastery, so you should be asking questions about these. But it is a first introduction that we expect you to do before class. Note that many of these slides have walk-along videos. These videos are not meant to be a replacement for the text there, but something to listen to as you read along. It's almost always me or maybe a past TA just talking over the lesson. We don't read it word for word, so it's still important to read it, but oftentimes students report just enjoying hearing someone give narrative or commentary on some of this stuff as we're going. Other really powerful features of ed lessons is you can actually run the code inside the reading. So there's this little hello world. If you press run, you can actually see what the output is. And also really powerful is you can actually try to see what if would happen if I do this thing. So if you want, you can actually change what the code examples do and then see what happens when you run it. So I'm changing hello world to hello Seattle, and you can see the output. So these playgrounds are really, really great for you to experiment and get a better understanding of what's going on. So you can always ask, what if I want to try this? Try it, see what happens. You're not going to break it in these ed lessons. So for each day of class, I'm going to ask you to read all of these slides up to and including the slide that we call pause and think. So pause and think is kind of the end of the new content for that day. And I'm going to ask you to reflect on what you learned. Okay, so summarize what you learned in this reading. What did you find challenging? What do you have questions about? And we're also going to ask you to post questions or answer questions on the ed discussion board. So we're going to ask you to go to the mega thread for this lesson and post a question. And if you don't have your own question, maybe you can heart someone else's. You can give that little heart react. But we want you to be thinking critically about what you're learning and try to reflect and understand this. So we're going to ask you to be participating in the discussion board. You could choose to do so anonymously if you want, but we are going to ask you to either heart react or post for each day of class because it should be a rare experience that you read a lesson and say, wow, I totally understand all that. Give me the exam right now. No, there is no exam. But what I'm saying here is that it's not going to be the case that you're going to fully understand something the first time around. Okay, so before class each day, do all of these reading slides and then do the pause and think. There are still some slides after the pause and think, and these are the practice problems that we're going to work together on in class. So what I recommend is don't do these before class, but come to class with them unfinished, and that we will then actually work on them together. So here you can see the types of practice problems will be either things like free-form answer or multiple choice, where you have to select one of the options or the best option, or in this case, type in what the output is. So there's a mix of these kind of quiz type questions, as well as programming problems, where it says, okay, you could write some code to do this. Again, I'm not going to do a full introduction for how to run this stuff yet. We'll do a little bit about that in section and in class tomorrow. But again, for Wednesday's class, what I want you to do before coming to class is have read all of these slides and completed this pause and think. You do not need to finish the practice problems yet. We'll do those together in class. And then again, if you want the extra credit, those checkpoint tokens, you would finish those up in class, or if you're not quite done during class, you can finish them up sometimes after. They're due at 11:59 p.m. Okay, that is the most important stuff for our syllabus and how we need to hit the class or hit the ground running for this course. Note there are some details I've overlooked because they're not super relevant yet. I haven't talked about how to turn in assignments or how you get feedback on assignments. We'll get there in time. I wanted to show you the most important things for now. Because we don't have time together today to talk about these, I'm going to reserve some time in class on Wednesday to ask questions. But there's also that lesson 0 mega thread for you to ask questions about these things, or you can post separately if you want to. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you all in class on Wednesday.